Inside Story Uganda, real source of political updates.
By conscription.
Once you compel, you have killed iPod. iPod was not, or our iPod works, it cannot work on when one is compelled. You can only handle a dialogue where somebody is willing to come into that dialogue and address matters in that context. So I am totally against this issue of compelling or trying to weaponize the concepts of dialogue and putting it in the law as it is. And that is why I was strong on the floor, and I've been strong. I am against what was done. It was
but they're dangling that carrot of money. You don't come, you don't take the money.
You see, when the concept, as Dr. Lawrence here raised this, that the concept which put in this issue of increased funding came under the chairmanship of UPC. Now, in iPod, you can only pass something which is mutually beneficial because each party effectively has a veto. Effectively, each party has a veto. So there's nothing which you can pass through which you can use to pin another party. So the context of iPod, you cannot use iPod to pin NRM, you cannot use iPod to pin NUP. It cannot work. Now, this, what they've weaponized is trying to put somebody in the dock. It cannot work under the auspices of iPod because effectively each of us have a veto, including the memorandum which is currently existing, and every parliament will negotiate the memorandum. This is the first order of business, and that's what you operate on. Under that memorandum, there is no way you can compel. And that's why I had an issue of people who are bringing this amendment don't understand how iPod works, and they brought an amendment which is not executionable. It will never work under iPod. Now, where you bring this issue,
of funding, moving this privately, or
no,
she was under the influence of
somebody is pushing her, right? Because she didn't have the facts, and I even wonder how the iPod secretariat got involved in something where we were not consulted. And I mentioned on the floor, I have been a member of the iPod Summit. I was not consulted as far as this bill is concerned. Now, the figures and the concept behind it is in line with what we had agreed in 2020, but was not implemented by NRM. NRM actually rejected it because I presented it to the committee headed by Obore. I presented that exact issue to the committee, and they said, no, we handle it administratively, but the whole issue was they wanted 70% of 35 instead of 75, whatever percentage what they hold of 25 million, so 25 billion. So it was the greed which killed that concept, but we remained engaged. Now, on the issue of how we came up with the issue of funding, under the UPC chairmanship, you first have to pass your issue through the council. Now, the council issue which I raised was the operations of political parties. My issue was we need strong, viable political parties in case of anything. And if we're able to talk, if there's a crisis, a major crisis in Uganda, and parties are able to talk, we're able to galvanize and keep the unity of the country going forward. My fear was, and I'll put it here on air, if we wake up tomorrow and the chairman of NRM has not woken up, what's going to happen? Because I'll tell you honestly, NRM is not a party per se. NRM is not a party per se.
We wake him up.
But if he's sleeping permanently, who's going to wake him up? We're all going to go that way. We're all going to go. Now, do we have systems in place? Other parties, are we able to talk on critical national issues? That was what I pushed there.
Absolutely.
That's what I pushed. Now, we agreed there. But what has happened of late, NRM have betrayed everything which we have built. Everything. What they have done to weaponize iPod, to weaponize this avenue where you have safety valves, they have killed the spirit of iPod.
So, in a sense, the boycott by NUP is justified because they feel iPod has since become just a joke.
There are issues, and following from Honorable Ssemujju here, there are issues where we needed genuine electoral reforms in order to strengthen democracy. But iPod platform, you cannot pin NRM, you cannot pin any party in iPod. So if we're following that issue, it's not iPod, that's not the avenue which you do. iPod, it will only deal with issues of mutual interest. So it's a round table of issue of mutual interest. So what we're able to pass through, in my term, I looked at what could pass through. We went through the council. Went through the council. When it passed, that's how we got to the summit. I will tell you that FDC, when they were in the chair, the issue which they pushed, and they pushed government to the wall, was an issue of POMA. And they really squeezed government until government got to a position where they had to try to deal with this issue. But the roots of POMA are even not, you need to go further back on the objectives, original objectives of the NRA revolution. And there, before I leave that point, there it is specifically put that only the NRM should operate in Uganda. That's the root of POMA. Yeah. That is where it is. Now, those are issues which you still need to address. But what, for me, as far as IPOD is concerned, is an avenue where we can discuss,
but the spirit
and we can deal with issues.
The spirit of IPOD has since been eroded by the NRM.
True.
And what remains in IPOD is money. True.
In this town,
no money
even
in
the issue of the money,
there's no money.
The issue of the money, the issue of the money, what has been brought of late defeats what we worked for. I'm the one, as Dr. Rowan said, I started this issue, we got the principles, it got the flesh and the DP, but I'm the one who's shouting loudest because I have genuine concern and disagreement on what was done. It is not IPOD.
So on the money tick, on issues of reforms.
No.
Jara, I think we also need to give this context. I was in Parliament as a journalist when the public funding, I don't even want to call it government, public funding of parties was discussed. In the law, there are two clauses or two sections. The law has which is, first, you're not allowed to receive money from what was being described as hostile countries. And in each election, government is supposed to publish a list of hostile countries. I think the last time they published was on Rwanda. You're not supposed to receive money from hostile countries, but also the funding from outside the country is related to, I don't remember which currency.
200,000 currency.
So those who were in the Committee on Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, that time chaired either by Wacha and Ogalo and Medicago and others, they said now that you have restricted the money from outside, you are not allowing some of the neighbors. They said these are public institutions that we must build using public funding. That was the whole idea. It had nothing to do with the dialogue, whether you dialogue or not, because you may dialogue and end up in government. And end in government when you are not ready to govern. So dialogue doesn't prepare parties. It actually just generating some consensus. You may get a party that has refused to dialogue with another and ends up in government with no knowledge, with no experience.
Council Benjamin Katana, the law is now dangling money as the carrot for you to belong to IPOD. You either attend or you miss the money.
Actually, there are two things. Membership, participation.
Yes.
I think 7 calls a meeting and you don't come, no money.
No money.
Yes.
I think
can you resist the money? The temptation?
I think the most important point to make is that when you bring an amendment or any legislation relating to governance, the intention ideally should be to deepen democracy, not to stifle democracy. And when you look at the amendment in question, the intention clearly is not to deepen democracy in the country, but to stifle it. But number two, when you look at this amendment, you see two things. One is ignorance, because when you look at the ones that conceived the idea, because you are talking about issues like accountability, you are talking about issues like tolerance, you are talking about issues like code of conduct for political parties, but these are already taken care of through the National Consultative Forum. In any case, the ideas that are being now fronted as the basis for conscripting people into IPOD are taken care of under the National Consultative Forum, which all the parties in Uganda are party to. I am currently privileged to serve as the vice chairperson representing my party. And that should help to clearly paint a picture to the population that, contrary to the misinformation and propaganda that has been propagated, that we are not interested in engagement, that we are already engaging. The chairman of the National Consultative Forum is from the NRM. The vice chairperson is from NUP. We have members from UPC, from DP, from FDC, and all the parties. And so it is not true that the opposition parties are not interested in engagement. Number 3 is what I mentioned earlier, that the NRM is interested in creating impressions, a facade, that, you know, we are tolerating opposition, we are engaging, while it continues to abduct and torture the supporters of the opposition, disrupt their activities, and don't allow them to do what they are supposed to do. And now there's another dimension to that we have people leading the parliament who have a bone to pick with NUP, and they think they can use the institution of parliament to cripple NUP because they think that our existence is on account of the money that we receive from the national treasury. This money is not from iPod. This is a contribution from the taxpayers of Uganda to the political parties. And we are entitled to it on account of the law, not on account of the wishes of any individual, because nobody has sold anything among the people who claim this money, not Dombo, not Museveni, not Among. Nobody has sold personal property to support political parties.
And now the law says,
Uganda who pay taxes.
Now the law says for you to access this money, you must be part of iPod.
That's a discussion the party will have, whether because the party, first of all, now iPod is under the National Consultative Forum in the amendment. We are already part of the National Consultative Forum. I've just informed you that I'm the vice chairperson of the National Consultative Forum. Now iPod is a department within a body that we are a party to. Previously, iPod was an NGO, like the Senator Mama Mba was described.
But I think it leaves you now with no option but to be conscripted if you want to call it.
No, what is important is not whether we have an option or not. What is important is whether this law adds any value in deepening the democracy in this country or not. And I've given you my opinion that I think in effect it stifles democracy. It doesn't deepen it.
Okay.
But
and you reject the money.
That is not my decision to make.
Do you feel?
But number 2 is that this is money that political parties are entitled to by virtue of law. So it is not a favor. It is an entitlement by virtue of law. So it's not a matter of rejecting
now, the
it
new
or not
condition,
rejecting it.
The new condition prescribes that for you to access this money, you have to sit and dialogue with the NRM and other forces.
I have told you that if you have read the law, and those who have read the law, iPod is now a department within National Consultative Forum. We are members of National Consultative Forum, fully involved and participating in the National Consultative Forum, even part of the leadership. So you cannot be...
There is a point of information from Dr. Surama.
Yeah, thank you. When I read the new the amendment, it says that there will be 2 organs of the National Consultative Forum. One is the Forum for Political Parties represented in Parliament, which will be called iPod, and another for non-parliamentary political parties. So I think by default, correct me, Council, if I misinterpreted it. By default, it means that for a political party in Parliament, you can only be under NCF through the organ of iPod.
No.
I think that's what it means.
The principle is NCF. iPod is an organ.
Okay.
So an organ cannot be bigger than the bigger...
No, but you can't be in NCF when you don't belong to iPod.
No,
I think
under the Constitution and even the relevant laws.
I don't think we are splitting hairs.
No.
All you see-
registered
All
political
registered
parties
political parties.
are under NCF.
Yes.
Yeah, but you see,
By law.
all you need to understand, what was the motivation? The motivation is that if Museveni calls a meeting, or the Honorable Akena as leader of UPC in Munyonyo, and Museveni is attending, and you don't attend, you will not get the money. That's why they were very specific. membership and participation.
Honorable Dombo.
The idea was to deny money.
Honorable Dombo, do you celebrate the moment that you've now caught them?
Barakagwa, I want first of all to congratulate the FDC and the UPC and the National Unity Platform and the other parties that have participated and also had the opportunity to lead the iPod. Because like you have heard, if you gave an opportunity to the executive person of the iPod, he would have enumerated the number of achievements. He was given an opportunity. The number of achievements that iPod has done. But deciphering just from what you have observed here, it just demonstrates to you that there is a lot of mileage that the political parties and the individuals in Uganda, the politicians, needed to do in order to find consensus in talking about the issues that affect the people. We have challenges in areas of governance. We have challenges in areas of agenda. Which agenda should we get into? We have challenges in the issue of giving capacity to the parties. That is how funding became an issue, because ordinarily before these funds were allowed to the political parties, some people would have looked at NRM because it was in government and were also receiving a substantial amount of money from the members of the NRM as their contribution to the party, yet because of our numbers that we had. And it became a good negotiating point to say, how do you give capacity to the members in order to grow democracy? That consensus for the parties to agree and convince Parliament to pass a law, that is something that was very productive and very helpful. Now the question is, how can you want to belong? How can you want to benefit from the effort of what others have done when you cherry pick on areas only where there is money? Because by common sense, this is what has been happening. The National Unity Platform, just a moment.
Correct,
no, you will correct when you have a
funding did not come as a result of discussions in iPod. iPod only discussed increment.
You see, the members of the political parties, you see, it is the individual parties which constitute the members within Parliament. And the level of funding, when he went to President Museveni, he came up with some important issues. Can we fund our religious institutions? This is something which President Museveni came up and made the proposition in our smaller meetings of the caucuses of NRM. He said, whenever he goes to the churches, he has discovered that the collections that the Christians or the faithfuls in those respective faiths, whatever they contribute is not enough to sustain the costs that they go through. The second one was, how can we run a democracy and we allow political parties to raise money from outside? What if they get money from the hostile sources?
So is he well-meaning in funding this party?
Absolutely. For religious institutions, you have seen what he has been doing, making contributions to Namgongo, making contributions to the Islamic faith, or whichever faith.
Oh, it's about compromise.
Whenever, it's not compromise, it's contribution, a good gesture. And that's why you see that when the opposition tried to attack it, and they received the hostility from the other side, they refrained from it. Now on political parties, it was a good gesture, and it's something that must not be condemned. But it becomes bad practice for you to cherry pick when you are an organization, to say you are only going to participate in collecting the money which has come up without participating.
But do you find it feasible that you should coerce people to talk?
You know, talking and dialoguing, it can be incentivized. And incentive can be through two directions. Basically, it can be through carrot or can be through stick. All those can be incentives depending on how the other side sees it. Because if you want to participate and pick the money and you benefit from it, why can't you be compelled to be part of the group that participates?
You seem to portray NUP as being very dishonest, that they pick money that is ostensibly meant for dialoguing
the discussion.
and growing democracy.
He's just trivializing the discussion, and you're helping him on that course.
No, not trivializing, but that's what has been happening. Because yesterday you listened to your president when he was addressing the members who were...
No, was the law to fund political parties a creation of discussions in iPod?
It was a creation of the members of the political parties.
No, but
No, it preceded the iPod discussions.
You were in Parliament, Dome. The idea was that these are public institutions. We have restricted foreign funding. We should fund them because one of them ultimately will be in power tomorrow. Dombo, you were in Parliament when this law was passed.
But that's what I have told you. That when we were
it had nothing to do with dialogue.
It was in Parliament, not in iPod.
No, once now it has become a property of iPod. The increment.
It is not a property of iPod in any way.
When the increment was done, how was it?
It was done in Parliament.
Honorable Ssemujju.
No.
Honorable Ssemujju.
Just a moment. Honorable Akena has just told you that he was in the chair when an observation was made, when he was in the chair of the iPod, that there is a need to give bigger capacity.
To increase.
To increase. That's what I'm telling you.
But the creation was work of Parliament long before the birth of iPod.
Actually, the creation was the work of President Museveni.
No, work of Parliament.
It was
given information.
It was the work of the President Museveni.
Honorable Dombo.
Was it a private member's bill?
He has given information.
No, was it a private member's bill?
Even the input, he has told you where it came
No, it
from.
was a Munyonyo decision.
No. He has told you the contribution regarding alternative sources of funding, since you are restricting political parties from fundraising from other countries and what have you, was a contribution from members of the committee, not from Museveni, not from Attorney General.
That was,
and he has given you examples of the members of the committee.
Let me tell you that was a decision of President Museveni.
It was a decision of
when
Parliament.
It was. No, but Parliament came in when it became a law.
He has told you the genesis.
Well, thank you. Honorable Ssemujju, is it time now to discuss the big question of money and democracy? Because now, as we speak, political parties are earning hefty sums in the name of promoting party democracy.
Annie?
They are getting a lot of money, in billions.
No, you see, the discussion, and you need to get people like the Honorable Ben Wacha, the Honorable Wandera Ogalo, who were making that law in Parliament. Medikagwa is now dead. I think Maratubo was on the committee. The idea was that you need to build this party as a country, these parties as a country. These parties don't belong to Honorable Akena. The parties are a property of the Republic of Uganda. That's why they make a declaration to Electoral Commission. That's why they are supposed to file returns to the Electoral Commission. Returns ordinarily, but also after each election. And funding them, because I said the discussion in the committee was that when you restrict them, then you must find a way these parties will survive. The Dombo starts with the increment. It doesn't start with how the 10 billion came to be. Because initially it was 10 billion that was being shared by parties.
That have representation in Parliament.
Yes.
The same.
For Museveni to patronize the parties, because you see, Museveni wants everything to be under him. If it is parties, and that's why people like Dombo, intelligent as he is, he says it was President Museveni, it was President Museveni. He wants to patronize, so even these parties wants to treat them like they are his departments under him. So they go and bow before him, we want funding, then say, okay, now I have given. That wasn't the idea at the beginning, and I'm speaking as a journalist who was covering proceedings in the committee. So you can fault political parties on accountability because the money was meant to build these parties. You can now, one of the points I made when we were quarreling in Parliament, I said, you decided to give political parties money. I think Jema gets 40 million, another party gets what? If the money is for building of a secretariat, you need even to agree the form that the secretariat will take and the staff and maybe the payment, such that you set standards for each party, that you will have the following structure, and then the structure will be enumerated like this money will be for this. Because when you are passing a budget in Parliament, each budget that we pass for government entities are supposed to produce a work plan. They are supposed to produce a recruitment plan. They are supposed to cost the money that you give them. If it is money for buying mandas, it is in the budget. I keep quarreling with the MPs that they never read the budget which they pass. Money for mandas is put in the budget, money for fuel, money for everything. When you throw money at the political party and you don't define what it will do, then you can't turn around and begin quarreling. Because the rest of the government departments, you produce a work plan, you produce a procurement plan, you produce a recruitment plan. We go in two codes. Money meant for mandas in Parliament cannot print papers because it is coded. You move it only on the activity that was approved by Parliament. The one of political party you just throw there, whether if the leaders want to eat it, they can eat it. Because you don't set standards for it. That's a trouble with it. So if, and I think Museveni wants it that way, so that tomorrow he can pick Ssemujju and he says you have eaten money for political party. Because if you've given them money for secretariat, you have defined it. That secretariat should be subject to the same standards as other entities that receive public funding. If it is a grant and they want to use it the way they want, then you cannot complain. Because you are the one who decided to do it that way.
Yeah, but there are two denominators here.
Yes.
Membership and participation.
In this particular amendment, the idea was to deal with the NOP because the FDC disintegrated, because we had exited. They couldn't deal with us at that time. Now NOP also came into the picture. How do we deal with them? Because Museveni likes violence and money. He must be the one to give. So if NOP has issue and they want money, then they must send a delegation to Obore before him, then he say, okay, now I can give you. But for you to receive money, I saw it even in the Parliament itself. I remember during the COVID, when we were doing a budget for COVID response, and we gave ourselves the 20 million, which became controversial. Museveni was on TV lambasting Parliament, how they are insensitive. Then he reversed the money. Even he supported people went to court. After that, he called the NRM and said, don't worry, Wama. The issue was 20 million. He gave them 40. He said, this 20 of Parliament return, and then you can also have 20 in your pocket. So that's how Museveni behaves. If it is money, he must be the giver. And then you must always praise him. Like
where is Museveni in this law?
There is Museveni all over. Even the NRM MPs were in Entebbe, and he told them, you go and pass the UPDF Act and then this amendment of political party. This was never a private member's bill. They just wanted to sanitize it, I mean, to make him look like he was not the one who was pushing for it.
Yeah, but what gave it weight, for instance? IPOD itself, the executive director is here. He made a contribution, didn't you?
The Honorable has told you that
you had an input.
But without
our authority.
So let me put this.
That's weird, isn't it?
no political party was consulted. I
No,
don't know if they
let me put
appeared
this
even
on
before the
record.
committee.
Let me put this on record. And I think Honorable Ssemujju in his submission said that, you know, some people were invited at, I think it was council, at 9, and then they were supposed to appear, you know, at 9 the following day. So I was called to Parliament. First of all, I got somebody consulting with me on phone on the operations of IPOD, how IPOD is structured, and all that, the MOU. And then, you know, a journalist calls you and says, oh, I would like to understand. So, at that time, of course, that was some time back. I then didn't know whatever was up.
So, sometime back, how far back?
How far back could be maybe 2 weeks.
Recently.
Yeah. Were you called by a ghost? Because this law on the order paper of Parliament It was,
Honorable
supposed,
Ssemujju,
it,
you were
was
a
supposed,
journalist.
it was supposed to have been moved by the Honorable
You were a journalist, Honorable
Honorable
Ssemujju.
Okiro, Honorable Okiro, seconded by Honorable Asumani Basari.
None of those.
I called Asumani myself, and he said I am not part of the law.
I did the same.
Okiro disappeared. On the order paper, you have different names. When it comes to move, it is in a Nakut from Karamoja, who says now I am the private member. I mean, there has never been a private member that can be inherited.
Okay, proceed in a minute, because we want to take a break. Yes.
But for me, the issue here is, when I was called to I was called to Parliament.
By who?
By the clerk.
Okay.
I was invited to come and help the committee understand how iPod operates. And
That was good consultation.
yeah, I went to Parliament strictly to tell them about how iPod operates.
What time were you invited?
I was invited, I was in Parliament on Thursday. What date was? The other week, last week. 15th. I was invited to appear. I was called on a Wednesday. I was called
To appear the following day.
Yes.
Wednesday we left Parliament at 6. They must have called you in the night. Because the law was introduced towards the end of Parliament. So they called you in the night and you were very eager, so you walked in and very happy.
No.
Has to peg this law on iPod, that iPod is now forcing members to relate.
Simon, that is a very wrong perception, because again, like I said, the input, the solitary input, was to explain two things. One, the working of iPod, or how iPod operates, and two, Honorable Jimmy Akena, my bosses, the summit leaders, adopted a position of institutionalization, and that is it. Making reference to the records, the summit means.
Institutionalization means something different.
Honorable Ssemujju, let me first explain.
No, but people who are watching must understand.
No, please give me time.
Did they ever propose that iPod becomes public?
No. Wait. I am going to come to that.
Making iPod
I am going to come to
public
that.
and institutionalizing
Honorable
it are different.
Ssemujju, let me explain.
Okay.
So they agreed that iPod be institutionalized. Now, in the discussion of institutionalization, were three options. The first option was, can we have iPod as a trust? The second one was an NGO. The third one was a statutory body. Okay? Those were the three options.
So you've also been struggling with identity.
Honorable
all this
Akena
while.
can agree with me. No, because you see, when you are registering an entity, you need to give it a facing, or a legal facing that accentuates its objectives without losing its track. Now, a discussion was done in a retreat. We looked at the merits and demerits of a trust, the merits and demerits of an NGO, and a statutory body. Now, what we did not conclude is what was the final institutionalization framework. Okay? But what we had agreed on was that a trust would not work in this format. Now, in that respect, in 2021, we went ahead and registered iPod, as you know the legal process, as an entity limited by guarantee. The guarantors are the political parties represented by the Secretaries General. And I can tell you that at that time, UPC, Democratic Party, NRM, and Justice Forum. FDC was already, was already showing signs of discomfort. And that time, NUP was not yet on board, because this was done prior to elections. Now, institutionalizing iPod as a statutory body does not in any way contravene the aspirations or the options that had been fronted as potential, avenues of institutionalization. So, I wouldn't say that moving in this direction, IPOD is going to, well, of course it will, we have to rethink, completely rethink of how we have been operating in the new framework. And I think the members of the summit and the statutory instrument will guide that. But for me, the most important thing is in the ethos of IPOD. IPOD not losing its independence is key. Very, very key. Because even when I was in parliament to the committee, I said that, look, the objectives of IPOD is we want to be independent, we are neutral. We do not want to bruise any of our members. The National Unity Platform, not being a signatory to, you know, to the MOU, does not mean that they hate IPOD. No, we surely believe, and like I've said, they have very, very genuine reasons that need to be understood as we engage in dialogue. That's one thing. But also the other actors, like government or NRM, needs to understand the position of NUP. So either of the sides ought to understand the other, so that, you know, collectively they can agree and say, okay, we appreciate where you're coming from, appreciate where we're coming from, how do we move forward?
Thank you very much. Honorable Ssemujju, thank you. Honorable Ssemujju, all said and done, there are 2 laws now on the shelves awaiting the president's signature, and it's so likely that he's going to ascend to them soon. How will you move as the opposition?
Yesterday we were in Nakawa court. Dr. Ssemujju was appearing. At the conclusion of that appearance, the court was surrounded by JAT. The Honorable Tafere said JAT is not part of police. The military said they don't know JAT. Moses Kainerugaba said, I know JAT. They kidnapped 2 of our middle leaders. One of them is from my constituency, and beat them and abandoned them. The MPs who made the law, and I've been telling them, I want to say something I've said many times, that Museveni is like a lion. When he's hungry, he will feed on anything in his environment. These NRM MPs think that the UPDF Act will not affect them. It will affect them. It's just a matter of time. When Lieutenant General Erueru was commanding the invasion on the Omusinga Ruwiri in Kasese Palace, Museveni was very happy. He promoted him from Major General to Lieutenant General and appointed him Deputy CDF. He disagreed with his son. The son said his New Year resolution included dealing with the Ruweru.
Who is described as a buffoon.
As a buffoon.
Buffoon.
Now the buffoon is going to be retired from the military. That's how Museveni works. I mean, you go back in history, people who have been close to him, the Katekayas, the Mushega, the VSJ, the Muntu, so you don't test your relationship with the lion by putting your finger into its mouth. What the MPs did was to surrender ourselves to Muhoozi Kainerugaba. First of all, what does Muhoozi Kainerugaba think about Parliament? He said, you crowds, you cannot summon me. Who are you to summon me? And he had organized a protest against Parliament until the Supreme Court nullified the law, and now he needed the crowns to help him change the law. So the crowns came and actually changed the law, as Muhoozi said, stupid as they were.
Are you saying this of your colleagues?
I mean, you can't pass a law that is going to affect you. You have someone who has become larger than life. The Human Rights Commission writes to him and he says, you should never send me this stupid letter. You woman, we give you life. The MPs, you summon him, he says, you MPs, you are crowns, I will come and arrest you. What crime had the MPs committed to deserve an arrest from Muhoozi Kainerugaba? What crime? And that's the sort of person that you author law and give him to implement. You must be stupid to do that. Someone who has said, just by summoning him to account, because every year we are spending between 4.5 trillion to 6 trillion on defense. People who run that sector must come and account to Parliament. When they called him, he said, you crowns, I will not come. If I come, I will arrest you. And the crowns now have authored a law, thrown it at him. Please do what you want, sir. I just pray that one day I get Moses Kainerugaba can arrest one of those crowns. So this law, the immediate target are the opposition. Because Moses now, I think he works as Secretary General of NRM or as a, so he's the one who runs NRM also by extension. I was passing by NRM office today until I ran away because of traffic jam. I have seen PLO, a poster there of Moses Kainerugaba at the entrance of NRM with his picture, a serving military officer. Let Dombo deny if it is not in Nakasero. So,
Honorable Dombo, is this true?
Absolutely not.
But he described the NRM as a fascist organization.
Because
a reactionary group.
That was his opinion at that time, because it was through a tweet, which I don't know whether he did it. But also, secondly,
yeah, but you put up his portrait.
There are individuals.
It is there. We can drive there after the show here.
That's not part of the secretariat, but there are individuals who associate, voluntary association, who associate with the party, and they come and put their insignia outside of the gate.
So anyone can hang any portrait?
It's not, as long as
can you hang Bobby Wine's portrait at NRM Secretariat?
As long as it conforms to the objectives of NRM.
Is one of the objectives condoning criminality, because he's having an officer coming out to portray himself as a partisan political actor.
Have you seen that?
Then the commander-in-chief must take
Honorable Dombo, have you seen that portrait?
It is at the entrance.
Have you seen that portrait?
I've seen a number of portraits with individuals. They
no,
come
they're
with
asking
them.
you a specific question, Dombo. You are
Have
intelligent.
you seen MK's portrait at the
entrance there?
What happens every morning? People come with those portraits and they sit there, and in the evening they
no,
go
this
with
one
them.
is pinned. It is not put there. It is pinned.
I need to look again to see that one.
You see, the law as we have it today, you have an army that you are not sure that is an army anymore. That you come to court, you kidnap people, you beat them, you abandon them. Because even if people have offended you, subject them to the law, take them to police, have them charged. But this army now is dishing out punishment the way they like. The head of the army can celebrate. I had so in my basement, I was punching him every day. And the man appears in court limping. So now the MPs have said, no. What you are committing might be illegal. Now we are giving you a law to do it, at least for you to protect yourself.
Thank you very much. I want us to